Good morning. I want to welcome members and staff and guests to the October DASNY meeting, meeting of the Board of Directors. We have a pretty full agenda, interestingly enough, a lot going on. The agenda has been revised to add an item 2B, actually, for those of you who have agendas. Before we start, I thought I'd make note of a very interesting fact here today. We have 4 Gerards in the room. we have, of course, Gerard Michel. We have Gerard Romsky. We have Gerard Klauser. And we want to welcome Gerard Farrell. Do you say Farrell or Farrell?
Farrell.
Farrell, okay. I want to welcome him. He's here from Ahmad Zafaris and will be presenting today. Good.
Thank you.
Welcome.
That's unprecedented. As a Gerard, I've never been. It's hard already dealing with 3. Because I never know who you're talking to.
What's interesting is that each of you has said precisely that. It's never been in the room before. All right. We are going to go directly to the minutes of the September 13th meeting. If all the members had a chance to review those minutes, are there any proposed revisions? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Sandra. Is there a second? I don't believe I did. John, thank you. John Romsky.
Yeah.
John Romsky. I'm going to catch up. Thank you very much, John. All in favor? Who's in favor? Aye.
E-N-Y. Sorry, E-N-Y.
Aye?
Aye.
Thank you very much. The minutes are approved unanimously. We're going to go to the Finance Committee report, but before we do that, what I would like to do is to ask for an executive session. May I have a motion, please, to go into executive session to discuss the financial and credit history of a particular corporation?
So moved.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Gerard, thank you for the second. Gerard Romsky, thank you for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We will go into a brief executive session. Kim, thank you. The record will reflect that members have just left an executive session during which no decisions were made other than to return to public session. We will now move on with the agenda. The next item is the Finance Committee report. Chairman Romsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Finance Committee met yesterday afternoon in Albany, and after first adopting the meeting minutes from the September 13th meeting of the Finance Committee, we advanced and discussed one offering, which was the Bronx Lebanon Hospital. After some discussion and noting that the Department of Health recommended the approval, we voted unanimously to recommend at today's board meeting that the resolution to proceed be adopted. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman Romsky. Any questions for Chair? Hearing none, we'll move to the next agenda item, which is the adoption of financing documents. There are resolutions there. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Behind tab 2 is the United Cerebral Palsy of Putnam and Southern Dutchess Accountants, Inc. Credit summary update with Steve Kozer and co-bond counsel Hal Patrick, Esquire, of Paris Beach, and Gerard Farrell, Esquire, of Ahmed Zafaris, presented.
I'll be brief.
There are no accidents here. We plan to have 3 chairs.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Prior to Hal and Gerard presenting the documents, I have a brief update on the transaction. All the necessary approvals for the board to adopt documents are in place. The PACB approval was obtained, TEFRA hearings were held, and the secret filing was completed. With regard to the tax diligence, the useful life analysis for the assets financed by the bonds being refunded supports an extension of the existing final maturity to the full 25 years of the proposed bonds. The institution has had conversations with OPWDD about amending the PPA to make the reimbursement coterminous with bondholder payments, but no determination has been made yet. So if the final maturity is extended and the PPA is not amended, it is expected that there will be a sub-allocation so that a portion of the bonds will be identified as being associated with the PPA and will amortize over the existing term of the PPA. The remaining bonds will then be wrapped around those bonds to create level debt service throughout the life of the bonds. That concludes my update, so I'm happy to take any questions or turn it over to Hal and Gerard.
Questions for Steve before we hear from council?
I think we'll, if I can say a couple of words here, just for orientation and further update on Steve's comments. In response to a request from Gates Capital, staff in public finance, legal, and other departments has been working to develop a streamlined private placement program that fits the UCP, United Cerebral Palsy, pooled financing authorization in the DASNY Act, and with a focus towards private placement purchasers, which happen to be institutional bond funds. This effort dovetails with the private placement working group, which Gerard and Michelle has asked us to convene to find efficiencies in the private placement process. Both Gates Capital and DASNY expect that once the development of the program is completed, including a set of template documents and agreed upon approaches and policies, that future financings could be undertaken more efficiently and more cost effectively for the end users. As part of the United Cerebral Palsy financing that's before you today for consideration, one of the new developments we have is a form of bond issuance circular that was developed with the assistance of our bond counsel. To review, this is a private placement. There's no official statement required, and the idea is to gather the essential information on the bond offering into this new document called the Bond Issuance Circular. The Bond Issuance Circular will not subject DASNY to any new or different federal securities law liability. Institutional investors of DASNY's privately placed bonds, who are all required to be qualified institutional buyers, will continue to be required to deliver at closing a certificate confirming, among other things, the QIB language, or QIB language as we call it, that is standard in DASNY private placements. This language includes 4 things that are fairly standard, but I want to list them off here. The purchaser status as a QIB, that the purchaser is willing and able to conduct an independent investigation of the risks involved with its ownership of the bonds. Third, that the purchaser has been provided with such information as it has deemed necessary and desirable relating to the institution's operations, governance, and financial condition. And last, that the purchaser has made such investigations as are necessary and in order to reach an investment decision with respect to its purchase of the bonds. These are the standard framework requirements for qualified institutional buyers engaging in these purchases through a private placement, and we want the board to know that they've all been carried forward and will appear prominently in this transaction. Thank you. Portia.
Sure. So, as Mike had noted, the bond issuance circular would contain that QIB language that I think we've discussed on numerous occasions in the past. It would also contain sort of in summary form information about the bond side of the transaction. And when I say the bond side, I mean things like security, pledged revenues, mortgage, redemption provisions, those kinds of things. And that's basically sort of the DASNY document that we work on with bond counsel. The private placement memorandum would have the information about the borrower, have the information about sort of their operating data, bondholder risks, really the borrower side of the equation. And going back to what Mike talked about in the beginning of his remarks, when he talked about trying to achieve efficiencies, we think that having the document set up this way will really help us to achieve efficiencies and help the process move along in a smooth fashion, because by identifying those summary terms relatively early in the process, we can get everybody on the same page in terms of what these things are. Because, these are private placements. They are sort of by their nature one-off transactions. They are transactions that are really subject to the agreement between the borrower and the purchaser, the private placement purchaser. And so oftentimes those things, they change over time. So we're really hopeful that by having this document, we'll be able to get everybody on the same page, because while things aren't changing wildly, the devil's always in the details. So being able to have everybody look at this at the same time, get on the same page, we think that this is going to lend some efficiencies to the process. And lastly, I would just say that, as Mike had noted, he's convened this working group at Gerard's direction. And this is, the working group will continue to look at the private placement process. This is sort of the first step, which we think is a very good first step, but we will continue to work. So thank you very much.
Let me suggest that the board might benefit from actually seeing this first cut, which will be used in this transaction, maybe getting copies of this document to the board so that they can review it, raise questions with you, Portia, or you, Mike. Since we're going to be using some variation of it going forward, it's reasonable that you should see what it does. It's actually very concise. It's almost handy. If anything about a bond transaction can be said to be handy. But what it does is in a very concise fashion set out those considerations that are peculiar, in particular, to private placements. And it gives us an opportunity to see what we're going to be doing with these going forward as the quality of this improves, as the working group continues to work through.
And one thing that I would note is this is a formulation that we would use for private placements where the purchaser is a bond fund, because the funds are basically asking that they have a private placement memorandum for basically sort of pricing and market valuation purposes. This is not something that any of the banks have ever asked for in terms of having a private placement memorandum. So I just wanted to make that distinction because I think, as you know, most of the private placements that we've undertaken have been undertaken with banks as the purchaser. There are a small number of transactions, but which may be growing, but a small number of transactions to date which have come before us where the purchaser is actually a bond fund, and in those instances, the funds have requested the placement memorandum, and this is the sort of the corresponding document.
Are these documents public?
So, generally speaking, the private placement documents are not public. In certain instances, certain of the transaction parties that we work with have indicated their desire to post documents on Emma. And so that's the situation in this case. So, sort of all the more reason that, we're paying careful attention.
Thank you, Portia. Don't know which of you will start, but I'd
I'm
love to
going to
hear
start.
from you, Hal.
Yes. I drew the short straw. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members. I'm here as bond counsel presenting the Cerebral Palsy Affiliates Program bonds for the series 2017. Before you for your consideration today is the adoption of two series resolutions that will authorize the issuance of an aggregate amount of up to $13 million in Cerebral Palsy Affiliates Program revenue bonds. This is the program that we're talking about. These bonds would be issued under the authorities of the Cerebral Palsy Affiliates Program revenue bond resolution that was adopted on October 9th, 2013, since the start of the program. And that resolution provides for the issuance of multiple series of bonds to fund loans to affiliates of United Cerebral Palsy Associations in New York State. This particular issue, there is only one UCP affiliate. It's the United Cerebral Palsy Association of Putnam and Southern Dutchess Counties, Inc. On this transaction, I'm joined by co-bond counsel Jerry Farrell. He's a partner at Ahmad and Zafaris, our co-bond counsel. They're one of the emerging firms on the authority's co-bond counsel list. The plan of finance here is to refund outstanding IDA bonds, to refinance a couple of pieces of taxable debt, to finance capital improvements to a number of the group home type facilities that the borrower has, to fund the debt service reserve fund, and to pay costs of issuance. As was mentioned, Gates Capital has obtained a commitment from Oppenheimer funds to purchase the bonds, and it's currently expected that the bonds will be issued as a combination of taxable, tax-exempt and taxable bonds in 2 series. Other configurations are possible under the series resolutions, including separating series bonds into sub-series. And it was mentioned in Steve's update that if there is a maturity issue where we need to subdivide the bonds, that ability is in the series resolutions to do sub-series. I'm going to ask Mr. Farrell to present the resolutions, and then I'll speak again at the end.
Chairman, members of the board, staff members, these bonds will be issued under the general resolution that Hal described, which was passed back on October 9th, 2013, and authorizes series resolutions for particular affiliates of the Cerebral Palsy Association. In this case, we have a general resolution, the basic contract between the authority and the bondholders. In this case, we have 2 series resolutions. We have a series resolutions covering the Series 2017A bonds and an identical resolution covering the Series 2017B bonds. It's expected that the B bonds will be taxable, a small taxable portion, pay certain costs. Both the series resolutions, they approve the principal amount up to a maximum of $13 million between the 2 resolutions. They state the date on which the bonds will mature, which will be within 25 years after the upcoming December 1st. They also, the series resolution approved the rates up to a maximum amount of 7.5% on tax-exempt bonds, 10% on the taxable bonds. They also authorized the approval of the sale price, which will be not less than 95% of the principal amount of the bonds. And because this is a private placement, it's expected it will be at 100% of the purchase price. It also provides, the resolution authorizes a delegation to the authorized officer as to determination of what portion of the bonds are tax exempt and which are taxable, and also describes the existence of the mortgaged property and pledged revenues. These particular bonds will be secured by a pledge of the revenues of this institution, plus they will also be granting a mortgage on 3 of their properties, Brewster, Carmel, and Garrison, New York. The resolution also authorized the funds to be approved in this deal, and there'll be a debt service reserve fund securing only these bonds. And by the way, these bonds will be only secured by these revenues from this institution, and they will not secure any other bonds. Let's see, and we talked about the resolutions approved the bond issuance circular, and there will also be a private placement memorandum done by the institution, which is the institution's document. Finally, the resolution provides that the bonds will be sold only to qualified institutional buyers. They must meet their, and they can only be transferred to qualified institutional buyers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Also before you today for your approval is a loan agreement, and it's a typical authority loan agreement that you expect to see. It obligates the institution to make payments of debt service to the trustee, and the obligation is a general obligation of the institution. The security package is a pledge of revenues subject to any prior pledges, and that includes certain public funds. This is a program that is largely funded from state and local government funds, and there is a statutory ability to intercept those funds that's available to the authority. It's set up in this transaction as a standby intercept agreement, And that means that if there's an event of default, the authority can go to the state payors or the local government payors and intercept those payment monies to get enough money to pay debt service. Those would be other monies otherwise payable to the institution. There'll also be, as Jerry mentioned, there'll be mortgages on 3 of the facilities, and those mortgages will be assigned to the trustee. Oppenheimer obviously is a qualified institutional buyer, and the bond placement agreement will deal with placement of bonds to Oppenheimer. The bonds are going to be purchased for the par amount. The proceeds are deposited with the trustee to pay project costs, cost of issuance, and fund the debt service reserve fund. Now, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions for any of these 3 gentlemen? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction?
So moved.
Thank you, Sandra. Is there a second, please? Thank you, Gerard. Gromsky. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. As there are none opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much. Thanks, 3 of you. Gerard, welcome to the table.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And before we leave this transaction, I thought we ought to thank Dina, who worked apparently, did a lot of the work on the new circuit. Thank you very much for that.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
Also behind tab 2 is the Bronx Lebanon Hospital Foundation. Gerard Clauser will present the credit summary and staff report.
Good morning. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the staff report provided to the members is seeking authorization for a resolution to proceed for the Bronx Lebanon Hospital Center. This is a privately placed 15-year bond issue in an amount not to exceed $36 million on behalf of the Bronx Lebanon Hospital Center. Bronx Lebanon Hospital Center is a financially sound hospital which serves the economically disadvantaged and the medically needy residents of the South and Central Bronx. The financing that you are considering this morning will advance refund the fixed rate TD Bank letter of credit backed Bronx Lebanon Hospital Center revenue bonds, Series 2009, of which there are 31,305,000 outstanding. The 15-year amortization will shorten the debt by over 2 years while demonstrating net present value savings of $8.1 million with 25.8% savings on the refunded bonds. The Series 2009 bonds were issued to finance the construction of the ambulatory care facility near the Concourse Division, which has contributed to the financial health of the hospital. The bonds will be privately placed by TD Bank, who will hold the bonds for 10 years, at which point the bonds will be subject to mandatory tender. The hospital will have the right to request the bank to extend the hold period. The proposed bonds will be secured by a pledge of gross receipts and mortgages on certain real property at the bank's discretion. Some of the financial highlights include an operating gain of $1.2 million in 2016 for a 1.29% operating margin. Other items worth noting include 71 days cash on hand, which is far above the regional median and nearly meets the DASNY median. On the utilization side, occupancy has been consistent is in excess of regional and DASNY medians, while average length of stay is favorably below the regional and DASNY medians. Additionally, the bonds will no longer be held publicly. The bonds will be held privately by TD Bank. Mr. Chairman?
Gerard, thank you. Are there questions for Gerard? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the resolution? Thank you, John. And thank you, John Gardner, for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. So none opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Gerard, thank you.
Thank you.
The next agenda item is the Audit Committee report. Chairman Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Audit Committee met yesterday. We had a report from our new KPMG partner in charge of the audit, the external audit, Marie Zimmerman, who reviewed the plan of the audit. We also discussed the status of our internal audit. And finally, we considered an amendment to the Audit Committee charter, which is precipitated by updates made by the Institute of Internal Auditors International Professional Practices Framework, which we are obliged to keep track of and implement as we go forward. So the Audit Committee considered and is recommending to this board approval of amendments that have been drafted to the Audit Committee charter. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chairman Gardner. The proposed revisions for the Audit Committee charter are found behind one of these tabs. Hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at them. Are there any questions? Hearing no questions, may I have a motion, please, to approve the amended chart?
So moved.
Thank you, Chairman Gardner. Is there a second?
Second.
Sanders, thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there none opposed? The motion carries unanimously. I want to thank Kathy Ebert for her hard work in producing yesterday's audit committee effort. It's a lot of work. Thank you for being good at it. The next agenda item is the report of the president.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to begin with the proposed 2018 DASNY board and committee meeting schedule. We are proposing 11 meetings, 5 in Albany and 6 in New York City. As per usual, a tentative special board meeting date of August 8th is noted on the schedule and will be held only if necessary. This schedule continues the practice of holding our board meeting dates closer to the beginning of the month to better align with PACB meetings. I also want to thank each of you who were able to attend the statewide MWBE conference that was held in Albany last week. We were very fortunate to have a packed house, and the statewide event was very well attended. We had a special DASNY section at the forum. I outlined to those in attendance our delivery of One DASNY, which is the complete integration of all resources in finance, design, and construction. As One DASNY, we are collaborating to leverage our entire organization. Healthcare and education institutions are partnering with a full complement of resources that maximizes impact and gets results. Al was kind enough to introduce me, and I was followed by Michael Clay, Lou Sorelli, Paul Koopman, Portia Lee, and Kim Ellis. Each of them described the work DASNY does to create opportunities for MWBE. More importantly, we had a number of our partners who were featured as very successful cases, MWBE firms that are doing some incredible work. Now, MWBEs in attendance were provided the opportunity to meet directly with DASNY staff members who also participated in and moderated various panels throughout the two-day event. Additionally, the bond buyer published an article on September 22nd based on an interview with me. The article highlighted many of our recent successes, including DASNY's finishing the first of 2017 as the second largest issuer of municipal bonds in the country. The article also highlighted DASNY's successes, including our selling $150 million of tax-exempt bonds to support SUNY Residence Hall projects throughout the state and improvements we have made to better serve our clients. I was very excited also to see that the reporter captured our construction work as well, including our application of design build to speed the construction of the residence hall for the college at Rockport. On September the 14th, I had the privilege of touring Columbia University's Jerome L. Green Science Center and its Lenfest Center for the Arts, two important elements of the university's Manhattanville campus that are rising in West Harlem. DASNY is providing significant financing, which you approved, for the new campus, which is already reshaping the surrounding community and the university's role within it. Both the Science and Arts Center invite the community into their spaces to participate in research and cultural activities. It was also gratifying to learn of Columbia's commitment in supporting MWBEs and local businesses through its workforce participation programs. They have committed to spending more than $130 million with MWBEs and local businesses in building the campus, and almost half of the construction workforce is composed of minorities, women, or local labor. I am truly proud that DASNY has been able to support these projects which help ensure that Columbia University will remain and grow as an economic engine in northern Manhattan. I will now turn this over to Portia Lee and Mark Hammond.
Before that, I wanted to thank Russ Biggs, who was able to find the time to attend the MWBE conference last week. Russ, thank you very much for being there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Behind tab 6 are the standard public finance reports. I wanted to note for the board that we priced the $1.7 billion PIT new money and refunding transaction last week through a competitive bid process. We bid the bonds in 5 tranches, and the winning bidders were Goldman, Bank of America Merrill, Morgan Stanley, Roosevelt and Cross, and JP Morgan. We received a good number of bids on each of the tranches, anywhere from 6 to 12 bids, and the bids were really very, very aggressive. So it was a very, very good result. I wanted to also note for the board that the financing also included funding for grants under the Capital Restructuring Financing Program, CRFP. This was not a program that was listed in the original staff reports when we brought this to the board, the authorizations to the board in April and May, so I wanted to update the board in that regard. And the PIT deal is scheduled to close Friday of this week. Brief market update. Treasury yields increased across the curve last week as the market reacted to news about Las Vegas, continued geopolitical tensions, positive Fed commentary, and strong economic data. Market participants are expecting a rate hike in December. The markets are actually pricing in over a 75% probability of a 25 basis point rate hike at the December meeting. Municipal bond flows saw outflows last week. Supply this week is approximately $7 billion. And MMD has increased since the last board meeting. 10-year MMD has increased 15 basis points since the last meeting, and 30-year MMD has increased 9 basis points since the last meeting. I'd also just note for the board that also included in the book are the quarterly financial advisor update, as well as bond sales summaries, which, as you know, contain performance metrics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Portia. On September 20th, as it relates to construction, Monroe Community College held a community celebration for its new downtown campus, which welcomes students for the fall semester. The new $78 million, 255,000 square foot downtown campus on State Street in Rochester will greatly expand MCC's ability to provide the education and training for jobs that will further fuel the region's resurging economy. To help fulfill its dream, Monroe Community College came to DASNY for interior design and the purchasing of furniture and equipment. DASNY completed the project with $1 million under budget, with an MWBE participation rate of above 50%. We did a tour of that. It's an astounding facility. The work that we partnered with MCC on to really see it as a front-level institution providing workforce development. We're part of that. The state is part of that. And just to reiterate, if you have not seen, and I was very surprised, I know from the financing side, all of the work that we have done to support Columbia University and its Manhattanville initiative, you got to go and see it. It really is astounding in terms of the scale and scope and the focus on engineering, biotechnology, really the STEM, as well as humanities. The Lenfest Center is very much open to the community. I've had the opportunity to go on weekends and take my daughter and my wife and Sandra as someone who comes to the city to look at a number of cultural activities and events. You really enjoy it in terms of the work that they are focused on in terms of architecture and rebuilding the community. So it is a recommitment that I think is long overdue, and I'm glad that we have been part of that.
Sounds
You have
outstanding.
supported that.
How far north in Manhattan is this Manhattanville?
Manhattanville is circa about 129th
Okay,
Street.
so it's not that far from the main campus.
No. But, for the most part,
Yes.
that whole Broadway
Yeah.
corridor. Barnard College
Sure.
goes further north, as well as the School of Union Theological, which is affiliated with campus. So it really is, it's quite
It
astounding.
had some challenging construction issues too.
They have.
Steve, I think.
They have.
So who do we call if a board member wants to go see the project?
Or what do we do?
Let
with
us
Steve?
know. Call me and we'll get Tanya Popin. They have a community initiative in which they are recognizing that they have to have an open face to the community. And the history of the university was one in which there were a number of challenges associated with that. This initiative is one that is more focused on being inside of the community as opposed to having gates to the community. Very important. The other thing that was astounding, I did not know that, they had, it was a milk farm in northern Manhattan that is in that area. A milk farm, really, where they had, cows.
Cows.
Yeah, cows.
For the benefit of the New Yorkers, that's not a milk farm, it's a dairy.
Dairy farm.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Gotcha. But we, it was, believe it or not, you knew what I meant, right? But believe it or
We knew
not,
what you meant.
we generally don't associate that in parts of the city. So, let me jump
It's
out.
still there now? No.
No, but the fact that whatever the housing is there, but when I was going to college there, at the risk of being reprimanded from my brethren and sisters upstate, there was a chicken farm, okay, around there. So I think poultry. Call us, we'll arrange it for you, because I think it's important to see the work that
We did
have.
that tour of that CUNY facility a couple
Yes,
years ago.
Which was terrific.
It was great. So we went to the hospital. We saw the whole.
Yeah,
right?
more
They
than
were
a couple
really.
of
They were
years, I
nice.
think.
Yeah, they would welcome.
5 years
so
ago?
If you're
4
interested,
years ago?
let me know and we'll arrange it for you.
Is that adjacent to the Hispanic Society, the art museum? Is that isn't that about West
Which-
129th? I think.
No, I don't think so. You're
No.
talking about the Puerto Rican Museum?
No.
El Museo del Barrio is on 105.
No, this is further north than Hispanic.
No, I'm not aware of that. But
I'd like to see it.
yes,
Really,
please. They have we spent pretty much a half day with them, really looking at it. And I'm happy to set something up and attend. As many members want to come on a day that we have a board meeting to do
Yes.
something like that. We're happy to do that. I will turn this over to Steve.
Thank you. Behind tab 7 are the 3 construction division reports. On the cover of the construction projects report is the highlighted SUNY New Paltz Bevier Hall renovation project that we recently completed. Project's budget was $19.1 million, and the scope included a gut renovation of the residence hall, including new floor plans, MEP systems, an added peaked roof, and associated site work. The design consultant is Architecture Plus. We started design in April of 2015. We completed design in February of 2016. The general contractor was PC Construction out of Burlington, Vermont. We started construction in December of 2016 and completed construction in August of 2017. We were allowed on site during the summer of 2016 to install some of the steel columns for the peaked roof, but a majority of the project was completed over 8 months, starting in December of 16 and completing in August of 17.
How do we, under Buy New York initiatives in the state, we have a general contractor from Vermont?
Everybody's allowed to bid the project.
Right, there's no local preferences.
No local vote.
The contractor did a good job, frankly. To spend $16 million in 8 months is very difficult to do, especially on a gut rehab project. This project, from a dollars and timeline perspective, was the most aggressive summer rehab project that we ever took on. So both the architect, Architecture Plus, they were very supportive during the process, and PC Construction did a very good job getting us open by August. The project included a LEED Gold rating. There was lounges added, an interior elevator added, attic space beneath the peaked roof, and new entryways. This was the third of 5 residence halls in this new Pulse complex that DASNY has renovated. In the past 3 or 4 years, we completed Crispell Hall and Lefebvre Hall. Bevier, this project was recently completed in August, and Deo is next up. This is a project that will start design soon and begin construction in May of 2019. In addition, on the next project, we're going to add 1 story of residence hall rooms, so we'll be rising it from a 4 to 5 story building. On page 3, there's a couple of new projects to note. At SUNY Purchase, we have a rehabilitation of the big house, a $10.9 million renovation project, and the College of Staten Island, we're doing a campus roadway reconstruction project valued at $9.1 million. In addition, you see various SUNY projects that were completed. These were all completed this past summer for the fall 2017 semester occupancy. Page 8 are the construction expenditures. Prior year to date, we expended $258 million. Current year to date, we're at $341 million. That's a change of $83 million. So the volume has gone up year over year. Next, I'll update you on a few projects and programs. I'll start with NYCHA. We continue to push through the 3 initiatives of security, appliances, and quality of life. On the security side, we're now complete with 30 projects. We have 16 additional projects in construction and 14 additional projects in design. The projects in design are the electrical and lighting projects. We have received construction documents for about half of those projects and anticipating moving those projects into construction within the next 3 to 6 months. On the appliances side, we have 20 developments where we have delivered and installed all appliances. We have 3 developments today that we're working in. And on the quality of life side, we have 6 projects that are moving into construction. These are exterior projects, mostly playgrounds and pavement projects. These 6 projects have stakeholder sign-off and 100% construction documents in place. Next is Moynihan Station. DASNY continues with our permitting tasks, including review of project bulletins for code impact, construction inspection services, special inspection services, and code compliance walkthroughs. The construction work today continues, including demolition, reinforcement of existing structural steel, reinforcement of structural steel roof trusses, footing excavation, and pile installation. On the Javits Center, the transformer building, construction we started in August. Ongoing activities include grade beam and tie beam installation. DASNY activities include steel frame inspection of the transformer building and review of revised construction documents for permitting purposes. And on the Javits Convention Center expansion, DASNY has issued permits for Phase 1 demolition that happened on August 4th, supported excavation on September 19th, and foundation caissons on September 22nd. Construction activities include demolition, earthwork, caisson installation for the North Garage loading dock. That's it. The Court Officers Training Academy, Con Ed delivered infrastructure for permanent power, which we expect will be energized this week. Construction continues on the stormwater detention system, other site work, MEP and finishes in both buildings 1 and 2. The general contractor continues to hold a November certificate of occupancy anticipated date. And at SUNY Brockport, the building's metal frame panel construction was completed this week for the 4-story project. We anticipate the structure will be enclosed and weather tight by November, allowing for interior activities to progress over the winter months. The project remains on schedule at this time with the July 2018 delivery date expected. And just a few other non-project related construction division updates. We're continuing to work on our project management system replacement. So contract manager, the system we use is going away. We have procured Stellar Associates from New York City to assist DASNY with the selection process of a new application. We anticipate the selection will take place by Q2 of 2018. The implementation will follow, and we anticipate a 12 to 14 month duration. Gerard mentioned EY. The Small Projects Planning Committee was established earlier in the summer, and they're focused today on 70 projects under the OPWDD Community Minor Maintenance Program. And lastly, we'll be kicking off our Construction Division Winter Training Series. We'll begin with presentations including the procurement lobbying law from our legal group, the EY effort, which construction will hear about in more detail, and we're working on our general conditions update for our construction contract. We'll have a session on that update and a few specific article sessions out of the general conditions to follow. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Steve. Questions?
Just a comment, Mr. Chair. I don't believe it was in the clips, but in this week's New York Real Estate Journal, I think the Governor Pendy article was on Penn Forum, but it was very complimentary to the SUNY Dorms program, and very complimentary to DASNY, and it was nice to see it, Steve. So thank you and congratulations.
Good to hear.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks for mentioning. George?
We have a resolution for your consideration today that would enable DASNY to engage EY, otherwise known as Ernst & Young, John, for ongoing support for as long as the next year. The contract extension caps the cost of this work at $150,000. In this extended capacity, they will serve as an on-call advisor as we continue to focus on the transformation of DASNY in 3 key areas: top-line growth, risk management, creating efficiencies. Their support will specifically target our development of a risk management framework and the teams we are establishing to develop specific process efficiencies and client outreach strategies. This extended contract will also enable us to bring members of the EY team to the broader DASNY community to facilitate training sessions. The services provided under this extension are targeted at providing support as we chart and execute on our new path forward. So we're not engaging them to produce anything. This engagement is really now to provide us with the support that we are now initializing in terms of how we are transforming all of DASNY. And as Steve had highlighted to you, one of the first areas that we have tackled and looked at efficiencies and looked at how do we diffuse information and new processes has been the small projects initiative of the construction division. We are going to unveil that in other divisions across all of DASNY. The benefit of that is really engaging our own people in a bottom-up process as opposed to really kind of pushing this down. We're obligated to push down, okay, focus on efficiency, risk management, and growing our business. But what we want to hear more voices. We want to recognize that there are many more touch points in the organization. And the best way to do that is really from the bottom up. So it's vision, which we've articulated, one DASNY. It is the documentation of that process, which we have done through the EY process. And then it is communicating that. And we are doing that now. So that's what we request.
The documents that support the request are tab 4, behind the President's Board report, behind the committee meetings, committee and board meeting schedules, and it's dated October 5th. It's Strategic Planning Consulting Service and Extension. It's the descriptive memorandum. The agreement that would extend the contract is immediately behind that. And then the resolution itself is immediately behind that. The resolution is pretty simple. The extension agreement is also very simple. Are there questions for Gerard or for Mike or anyone on that?
Just one question. Yes.
Is there a firm commitment from Ernst & Young in terms of their fees over this period?
You said
their expenses, their fees, is there a firm commitment?
we've negotiated with them. We've had experience doing that. And Paul Koopman, who is heading up this initiative and heads up our procurement process, is working very closely with them. So there's an upfront understanding of what we want and how we want to execute on that.
So it's a not to exceed amount. That's right. $150,000. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Are there questions? Hearing none, are we prepared? May I have a motion, please, to approve the resolution? Thank you, John Gardner. Thank you, Gerard Rumsky, for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. There are none opposed. The motion carries unanimously. May I ask, now that you've done that, there's at least one person here, John Johnson, who did not get to see the EY presentation. It was about an hour in length. I don't know how to arrange for that. John would have to come early to a meeting and be willing to stay late. But do you think I thought it was an excellent presentation. I don't know, Adrian, if you had a chance. Were you here for that meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay, terrific. Anybody, of course, who wants to see it again?
We had also asked, I think, for a hard copy of their
Of their deck?
slides.
Yes. Their slides?
Was it not videotaped?
No, it was a series of
Okay.
slides.
Okay.
And sorry that you don't have that. We'll arrange to get those to you so that you can go
At
through.
least that.
Yeah.
At least that for John.
Yeah, that would be very helpful.
Okay,
And once armed with that, then we can ask additional questions.
fair enough, fair enough. So is everybody satisfied with getting just the deck of material? It's not a big deck, but there are some complicated slides, I think you may want to, well, you're going to want to raise questions about some of them. I mean, it's very thorough. Yeah. All right, we'll make sure that everybody gets copies.
The slides are a little cryptic. You're gonna.
Well, we,
So
You need to follow up.
This
The
is,
slides
this is,
aren't
this is the
gonna-
benefit now. This is our project, and so Paul and Dan, myself, Andy Purcell can present this to you. And so what we asked of them was to really provide us with evidence-based analysis. And now what we're really doing is executing on that. So we have a larger plan that we have compiled that is probably going to be more helpful in terms of giving you a sense of what we're doing. So that was really the pathway, the analytics in terms of, all right, here's what we've heard, this is what we've engaged you on internally. Now, here's a pathway. We've had to actualize and execute on that because there are some discernible things we want to come back that are very tangible and say, this is done. The first part of that is the small projects initiative that has taken shape in the construction division. So we're looking at efficiencies in terms of how we deliver on projects, and we're looking at using that in other areas of construction.
So Paul, for example, will take those questions.
Yeah, we can bring the EY. What I say is the change.
DASNY EY
Yes,
team.
the change team, which is present here, at any point in time, we're happy to brief you on that, and we can pull EY in that.
I was just going to ask,
But
if
I think
there were a reason to do it or a need to do it, we could actually have, since they're going to be with us
we
now,
can pull them in.
bring them in.
But I think
And even in the city,
there's
it might be in the city.
There's a cost. There's a
easier.
cost to that too. So we want to.
We're already paying them on it.
Right, we're paying already.
We want to.
And you're in the city, they could just come right down the block.
But remember, there are certain projects that we want to engage them in. So every dollar, because otherwise we'll come back to you.
I understand.
But what I'm saying is, I think you want to see now. I believe you want to see the flesh on the bones. That's because that's what Paul, Dan, and the team are reproducing at this point in time. So we have a schedule, we have a series of committees across all of DASNY where people are engaged in terms of thinking through efficiencies, thinking through risk management, and thinking through how we grow our business, how we find adjacent opportunities. One of those we started early, which is the work that Mike has been doing on the standardization process, the due diligence. So that's one approach. But generally, we are moving this in the province inside the organization, bubbling up to the leadership as opposed to pushing it down.
Fair enough. Thank you. We'll make sure that everybody gets copies today. And after that, if you choose to raise questions, please do. And we'll follow up at the next meeting or one after that to see, A, that you've gotten, and B, that you've had a chance to talk with whomever you'd like to speak with. I think we're at item number 7 on the agenda, which means that I now ask Kim whether or not she has anything to add to her written report.
Yes, thank you. Just want to speak to a couple of the highlights in the financial report. We do continue to perform well against our budget at this point in the year. We've closed on 6 private financings. That has generated $840,000 worth of fees, or just under 40% of our year-end budget for the fiscal year. We do continue to have a high workload in the grants group, which has our percent of direct hour charges higher than budget. We are at about 93% of our hours being charged to public clients as opposed to private. The budget had 88%. In terms of our operating expenditures, we are about 1% above budget at this point. That's primarily due to the salary adjustments for the management confidential that you discussed in your July meeting, as well as timing associated with contractual salary adjustments, legal services, utilities, and office supplies.
So even with the EY expense on the non-personnel costs, we're still below budget?
The cost for the EY work is not part of the income statement, so it would not be reflected in those numbers. Those dollars are being funded from the reserve that was set up by the board in July of 2016 for those purposes.
What was that? That was the 5 billion? What did we do there?
Yes.
5 billion, I think, right?
No, there's more than that, wasn't it?
It was for the reserve that this is associated with, the evolutionary reserve.
Yes.
That was $3 or $4 million.
Kim, do you think over the next few months you might catch us up on the three reserves that were what's the word I'm looking for? That were changed, that became sources of funds. Could you catch us up at some point in the future as to what's been spent? What remains?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kim. And Mike, you get to give the last report.
Yeah, I think the efforts of council office are reflected in the materials before the board, and I have nothing further to report.
Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Questions for Mike? Questions for staff?
I just note the person I'm looking across the room for the last 4 years isn't here, but welcome, Dina, and also thank you. Apparently, Deborah has actually officially retired, so I'd like to thank Deborah for her services to the organization.
Are you all planning to do? I don't know what the course of events here at DASNY.
Welcome, Dina, by the way. That was, we have a plan.
Is there a plan?
Yes.
May we know what it is
later.
once you have it?
Yes.
Okay. Terrific. Is there any additional business to come before the board? There being none, may I have a motion, please, to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you very much, Sandra. John Johnson, thank you for the second. Did you second that?
Yes, I did.
All right, thank you so much. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye.
So,
John, thank you for doing